Today, I have a story for you guys about these kids who genuinely believe the backrooms are real, and they actually end up trying to find the backrooms. It's a really crazy story that was submitted to me on Instagram. If you guys have any stories you want me to cover, make sure you just send me a DM at KeyedBoy on Instagram, and I might just cover it, like the video or podcast that you're listening to right now, for some free air. Oh yeah, that's right, free. Also, subscribe or follow right now so we can hit 10 subs or followers. Thank you. And with that all being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. And as always, all of the names in the story and teachers' names are made up, so don't think you can go try to find these people in real life or something like that. It's just not gonna happen. So it all started in who we're gonna call Mr. Johnson's class. This is where my subscriber noticed a group of classmates constantly talking about something called the Backrooms. They were always discussing their made-up experience in this alternate dimension, describing the bizarre creatures and sights that they claimed to have encountered. At first, the subscriber was intrigued by their stories, but it quickly became clear that they had become obsessed with the Backrooms. They couldn't stop talking about it and would spend hours during recess and lunch discussing it. It was like they had completely lost touch with reality. One day, during art class, the subscriber overheard one of the backroom kids telling their friends about a particularly intense trip they had taken to the backrooms the night before. They were describing a giant monster that had chased them through the maze-like corridors and how they had barely escaped with their lives. The subscriber couldn't help but roll their eyes at these obvious lies. I mean, who in their right mind would believe in a place like the backrooms, like genuinely believe in it? Despite their skepticism, the backroom kids weren't deterred. They kept talking about the backrooms and even started bringing in props like flashlights and compasses to school to make it seem more legit. They would draw pictures and write stories about their adventures, and it was like they were trying to create some sort of elaborate mythology around this imaginary world. Our subscriber found it pretty amusing to watch them go on and on about the backrooms at first, but it quickly became annoying to them. These kids were skipping homework and skipping class and stuff just to work on their backroom related projects. The teachers were getting mad at them, they were getting bad grades. Like when our subscriber says that they were obsessed, it really truly seems that they were obsessed. Eventually though, things got really out of hand when the backroom kids decided to try and take a field trip to the backrooms. They brought in a bunch of cardboard boxes to class and arranged them in this maze-like pattern all in the back of the classroom. Then they invited everyone in the class to come and explore the backrooms with them. Our subscriber couldn't help but laugh at this whenever she saw what they had done. It was so ridiculous that it was actually kind of funny to them. But the backroom kids were dead serious about this. They had flashlights and compasses and maps, and they were ready to embark on their great adventure. Of course, nobody in the class took them up on their offer. It was just too weird and cringy, even for middle schoolers. But these kids didn't care. They kept on talking about the backrooms. They kept saying how they explore them. And if you mentioned to these kids that the backrooms were fake, they would get so mad. Anyways, one day, our subscriber decided to confront these kids about the whole entire situation with the backrooms. They asked if they really believed in the backrooms or if it was just a joke. They looked at the subscriber like they were crazy and said that of course the backrooms were real. Then showed the subscriber a video on YouTube that they claimed was proof of their existence. Our subscriber says that the video was so bad it was actually hilarious. She says it looked like it was filmed on a potato and the creature they claimed to have seen looked like it was made out of paper mache. They truly couldn't believe that they were actually taking this seriously. Despite our subscribers' attempts to reason with them, the backroom kids were still convinced that the backrooms were 100% real and legit. It was like they were living in a fantasy world that nobody else could access. I just gotta say, this is somewhat reminding me of the Slenderman girls. You didn't know there were these two girls who actually truly believed that Slender Man was real, and they were completely 100% convinced that they needed to make a sacrifice to Slenderman. So they ended up luring one of their friends into the woods, and they actually had a pointy object, and yeah, can't say what they actually did, but you can put two and two together. I think they both ended up in a mental institute. But yeah, crazy stuff, and I see the parallels between them and the backroom kids. I'm not saying that these kids are going to go and lure someone into the woods and use a pointy object, but I mean, similar level of weirdness. Anyways, one day during our subscriber science class, they were supposed to be learning about the periodic table, but but the backroom kids were too busy talking about their latest adventures in the backroom. Our subscriber couldn't help but be a little bit curious about the story that they were telling, so they took out their journal and wrote down what one of the kids said. It's probably not 100% accurate, but here we have it. The kid said, "So the first time I went to the backrooms, I was just wandering around in this abandoned building, and I found this door that looked like it was from a different dimension. It was like all glitched out and flickering, you know?" Everyone in the classroom nodded, pretending like they understood and agreed with him. The kid then continued on to say, "I opened the door and suddenly I was in this endless maze of yellow concrete rooms. The buzzing of the fluorescent lights was so loud, it was like it was inside of my head, and there were these weird, unexplainable entities that would occasionally appear out of nowhere and disappear just as quickly." Another one of the backroom kids chimed in saying, "The first time I went, I found myself in a dark red room that was almost completely empty, except for this old wooden chair in the center. I sat down in the chair and suddenly I was transported to another part of the backrooms. It was like I was being controlled by some sort of higher power." Our subscriber at this point couldn't help but roll their eyes. I mean, the stories were so far-fetched it was comical, but they didn't want to ruin their fun, so they just decided to listen and nod along. Kid continued on to say, "The scariest part about the backrooms is that you never know when you're going to wake up. Sometimes I'll be walking around and suddenly I'll snap out of it and realize that I was just dreaming about the backrooms. It's like it's following me when I'm awake." After that, our subscriber couldn't hold it in anymore and they decided to mess around with the kids a little bit. They said, "Hey, have you guys heard of the YouTuber who claims to have visited the backrooms?" And they continued on to say, "His name is Jake Paul and he says he found a secret entrance in his house." To our subscriber's surprise, the backroom kids looked at them in awe, like they had just revealed some sort of secret knowledge. "No way," one of them said. "We have to watch that video after class." The subscriber couldn't help but chuckle to themselves as they eagerly pulled out their phones and started searching for the video. Of course, there was no such video, but the subscriber thought it was pretty fun to see them all fall for the joke. As the school year went on, the backroom kids slowly started to lose interest in the backrooms. They moved on to other obsessions like Fortnite and TikTok dances. I think I'd prefer if they just stuck with the backrooms, to be honest, because Jesus. But as our subscriber looks back, they think it was kind of funny to think about how obsessed these kids were with something that was completely made up. But at the same time, our subscriber found it a little bit sad. It was like they were trying to escape from their boring, mundane lives by creating this elaborate fantasy world. Our subscriber goes on to say, you know, we all have our own ways of coping with reality, but for these kids, they decided to cope with the backrooms. In the end, our subscriber says that they learned that it's important to have a little bit of an imagination, but it's also important to stay grounded in reality. The backroom kids may have been living in a fantasy world, but at least they were having fun, and who knows, maybe one day they'll look back on their backroom adventures and laugh about how ridiculous it all was.